It is Tony from the Dog Training College. In this video, I'm just going to show you how to actually schedule a webinar and some of the best practices that we use. So the first thing you would need to do is head on to the Zoom website, which is zoom.us, and it should bring you to this page. So once you're on this page, the first thing I would do is head into the top right hand corner and click on your account. And it should take you straight to your profile. If it doesn't, you just have to log in and then it will redirect you to this page. So in the left hand corner of the screen, there is a personal tab that should have your profile, your meetings, your webinars, recordings, and your account settings. So I would click on webinars, and this will show you all of your upcoming webinars and your webinar ID as well to view it. So the first thing you do is click schedule a webinar. It's really simple. You would just type in the topic. So that's normally what the webinar is about. So I'm just going to put dog training webinar. And then you can put in a description. So I would definitely recommend putting in a description because this is where people would see what your webinar is about, and you can put in any of your key information here, such as if you have any requirements to join the webinar. And then the next one after that is using a template. So you can actually set up a template with your webinar so you don't have to do this all the time, but I'll include that in a separate video as well for you. So once you scroll down, you will see that you have options to set it for a certain date and certain time. It's really easy to change. You just click on this calendar icon and click on the date you want. So I'm going to do it for tomorrow, and I'm going to change that for 1 p.m. And then you can also set the duration of the webinar as well. But for now, I'll leave this to an hour because this is normally what a webinar is. However, you can set it for as long as you want, and I think the maximum is 7 hours. So the next one after that is your time zone. I would always leave this in London just to make sure it doesn't confuse anyone. But if you aren't from the UK, you can change this accordingly. So the next one is recurring webinar. So this is if you had it, so you had a webinar every single week at a certain time, you can click on that and then that would allow you to schedule every single one, which is quite handy. We use this for our team meetings from the Dog Training College. So the next one is your registration. So you would just click on registration and it would give you two different options. To register, it would either collect all of their user information such as their first name, last name and email address, or if you didn't want to do it that way, you can also provide them a link. So it would just give you a link and they would click on it and then it would take them straight to the webinar without even having to sign up. So I'll leave that off for now. It will also ask you to set up a webinar password if you want. This is just a bit of extra security, so if someone does have the meeting ID, let's say someone shared it with a friend outside of your student group, then you can just have that extra protection that people can't join unless they know the webinar password too. So I'll leave that on for now. The next option you have after this is your video and your audio settings. So I would always leave your host video on because this will mean that they can always see you, and your panelists are for anyone if you have like special guests. So with panelists, you can have up to 100 panelists in a webinar for free within your plan, and you can have them to turn the video on or off. I normally leave the video off because they can manually turn it on in the webinar itself, so it doesn't overly matter too much at this stage. The next thing you have is your audio settings. So you have 3 different options for your audio settings. You have your telephone, and this basically means that people can dial in off their mobile phone or landline and it will bring them straight into the webinar through that audio device. Or you have computer audio as well, and this will basically use your microphone from your computer or laptop and you will use your device's speakers as well. And the last option is both. So I normally leave all of our webinars on both. So if for some reason someone does have technical difficulties on their computer, they can always call up as just a backup option as well. But if you do have only one option on, you can't change it once the webinar has started. So that's just something to be conscious of. So the next options you have are for your webinar itself. So you have 5 different options here. So I'll go through them. So the first one is a Q&A. So this gives you a little option in your webinar itself that people can type in questions, and either one of your colleagues who's in the meeting can answer them for you, or you can directly see them on your screen whilst you're presenting and you can answer them that way. So I normally leave that on as just the best practice. The next one is enable practice session. So with a practice session, it basically means that you can join a meeting or start a webinar without having to actually go live straight away. It will basically allow you to actually have a look at the different settings you have, and then once you're feeling confident enough and you know how to use the menu bars at the bottom, you can actually click on the broadcast button, and that would allow you to go straight in and broadcast to all of your students. So I definitely always leave that on as a best practice. I would leave the authenticated users off because this is only really for businesses who use their own servers. So it doesn't really apply to us, so I would definitely leave that off for now. And the last 2 options you have are making your webinar on demand and recording the webinar automatically. So the webinar on demand feature basically just means that if you wanted to allow people to view the recording straight after the webinar is finished, it will basically bring them to a web page and it will allow them to replay. It's not overly essential if you have this on or off, because the next feature will actually allow you to record it yourself, and you can record that on your local computer or in the cloud as well. So I normally leave the recording on and leave it in the cloud as well, like you can see on my screen. And the last option you have is called alternative hosts. So with the basic plan you have with Zoom webinars, you can only have one host. So I would always leave that alternative hosts to blank, because you can always have up to 100 participants. So I'll definitely leave that off. So once you're ready with all of those settings, if you just click on schedule, it will bring you to your scheduled webinar, and it will give you a few different options, such as if you wanted to add it to your calendar, or if you wanted to edit any of these settings here as well. Then one of the most key options you have is to save this webinar as a template. So this will allow you to actually reuse it. So if you wanted to save time, I just click on that, but it's not overly important. So you now have quite a few different tabs on here, which I'll go through. So under invitations, the first one you have is called invite panelists, and these are people that are special guests. So these aren't attendees for your students. These are if you have anyone you want to bring in to actually have a discussion with, such as a live guest, or if you had anyone like us, where if you have like Dr. Nick Thompson, or if you have anyone who's lead in industry, they can join that way. So they have different access levels to attendees. So all you do is click on edit here. You would type in their name and their email address and just click save, and then it will send them a email with the easiest way to join as well. So the next one after that is called invite attendees. So depends on your plan, you will see 2 different sizes for your webinar. The normal plan comes with 100 attendees, and I think the pro plan comes with 500 attendees. And then you will see this link to join webinar. All you do is just copy the invitation. If you just copy the link here and go on to a new tab and just copy and paste, it will launch the meeting straight up for you, and you just click open up in Zoom. And then as you can see here, it will show you the meeting and the webinar just like we've discussed in other videos, but you will have a lot of different options as well. So I'll go back to the options in just a bit. So let's just close that and go back onto it. So the next one you have after this is your email settings. So a lot of the time I leave the email settings off because we actually email customers ourselves, but it does do quite a few reminders as well. So I'll just go through them anyway. So the email contact, if you just click on the email contact, it will basically allow you to put who it's from. So if you wanted to put your name, so for me, I would just put Tony Andrews, and then it would show up the email from Tony Andrews at info@dogtrainingcollege.co.uk. And then it just changes it straight away. You can then edit your invitation email for panelists, and this is if you want to have Zoom automatically send it out to your special guest. I normally leave it on because it saves time, but that one's totally up to you. The next one is confirmation email to registrants. So this is your attendees. So Zoom can actually send you and send your attendees a email once they've registered with all of the instructions in. I normally leave this on because it just makes life a lot easier and you don't have to manually send everyone an email. But if you did want to edit that, all you do is click edit, and you can change the subject, your body, and then you can have all of these pre-made instructions as well. So it just makes life a bit easier. So the next one is your reminder emails to attendees and panelists. So with that, you can actually get Zoom to remind people either an hour before, a day before, and a week before. So I definitely recommend turning either one. I probably turn on all three, to be honest, just to make everyone aware, because I sometimes forget quite a lot of the webinars, so it's just a nice handy feature to have. And again, you can change your subject and some of the text as well. So once you've done that, just click save and it will save for you. And then you can also set up a follow-up email to attendees if you wanted just to thank them for joining your webinar, and you can have a follow-up if they don't attend as well. So that's a quite handy feature. So the next one you have is branding. So with the branding, it's very nice because you can actually incorporate your logo with it. So you can have a banner at the top of your invitation page, and you can also have your company logo as well. So it's really easy to do. You just click on your logo and click upload. Then you would find one of our logos. I'll put our Dog Training College logo on for now. And then that's how simple it is it will show up your logo straight away. So the next option you have is your post attendee URL. So this basically means that once the webinar's finished and everyone has disconnected, you just type in a link and it would take them straight to that page. So I normally either do it to a thank you page for attending, or if you had it to your website. So they're two definitely important ones to use. And the next one is your post-webinar survey as well. So you can actually set up a survey page so you can get feedback from your webinars. I don't really use that feature, but you can if you want, and you just turn that on and then enter the survey URL as well. But I'll leave that off for now. Then if you scroll up, you have the option for polls. So with polls, this is quite an important one because once you have started a webinar, you can't set this up in the future. You would have to set up polls before you actually do a webinar, but they're really easy to do. You just click on add, and then it would allow you to ask people questions, and it would actually show up in their webinar itself. So you can just click on polls in the menu bar, and then it would show up to all of your students or customers. So I'll cancel that one for now because we aren't using that one, but it's really simple to use. The next one is Q&As. So I always leave the Q&A features on, and I always leave it on the default settings. So you can have anonymous questions, and you can actually allow attendees to view answered questions only, so they don't get bombarded with questions that people haven't answered. But I just leave that on to make life really simple. And then the next one is integration with that. And with integration, that's if you had a third-party software you wanted to use it with. I don't really use the integration feature because I think Zoom has a lot of its own good features. But if you did want to, all you do is click on configure and you would just fill in these two options here. And the last option you have is live streaming. So Zoom actually live streams to four different places. You can use the Facebook Live feature, and it will go straight onto Facebook Live. You could use Facebook Workplace. You can use YouTube Live, and you can actually use third-party software as well. And that's how simple it is to set up a webinar. So once you have set up a webinar, all you do is click on Join Now. It will launch the meeting for you, and it will just ask you to open Zoom if you have it on your computer. If not, just click on Download and Run Zoom. So this is what it's going to look like once you are in a meeting. And it's basically the same as it would look like if you were in a standard meeting, but it does change a bit with the menu buttons at the bottom. So you will have your audio settings and your video settings here. So you can mute yourself or unmute yourself, and you can actually start your video or stop your video. And then you have the drop down menus if you wanted to configure what devices it came from, or if you wanted to change any of the settings itself. So the next one you have is your participants. So participants is a bit different than a normal meeting. So it will show you two different tabs. It will show you your panelists and your attendees. So with your panelists, it will basically allow you to mute and unmute your special guests if you didn't want them to talk until a certain time, which I would definitely use. So you can introduce them, and you have your attendee option as well. So when people join as an attendee, you will see them in this category down here. And then you have four different options, I believe. You can allow them to talk, which means that you can set it to individual people. So if you were asking questions and someone had a question, you would just click allow them to talk. You have raise your hand, so people will be able to raise their hand and ask you questions. And then you can mute them and unmute them as well, just the same with panelists. So the next one is the Q&A feature. So if you did have a Q&A, it would show you all of the questions up here, and then you would just have a button here to say push to attendees, and it would show up on all of your attendees' screens. And then you can see any of your answer questions, or if you dismissed any questions as well. The next one is polling. So if you wanted to ask a question, your question should automatically be populated. If not, it depends on if you're in practice mode or not. You can have an option to ask a question. But I'd leave that off for now, but if you wanted to, it would just take you to this page here. So I'll close that one. Then you have your option to share your screen. So all you do is click on share your screen, and then you can pick desktop 1, and it would allow them to view all of your screen. But I'll close that for now because I don't want to share my screen. Then you have your chat box. So with the webinar chat, you have an option here, which is a drop-down menu for all panelists or everyone in the meeting. I normally leave it to everyone in the meeting, and then any questions you send out, or if you wanted to send out links to anyone, that's how everyone would view it, and it would just pop up down here with a number of how many unread messages you have as well. So the next one you have is your more option, and this is where you can record in the cloud or record on this computer. And this is where you would actually go live on Facebook, Workplace, or YouTube as well. So once you're ready to start off the webinar, all you do is at the top where it says practice mode only, if you click on broadcast, it will now say this webinar is now broadcasted to all attendees. And you can notice up here that it's now recording the webinar as well. And then it will allow people to join, but if they can't join, just again click on more and click on invite, and then just send them the URL or the copy of the invitation as well. And then once you're done with the meeting, just click end meeting, and then end meeting for all, because it will just be ending it for everyone, and then it will take you back to your home screen. And then you will also see up here that you'll get a notification once the recording is done as well for you. So hopefully this helps, and then if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you.